Imagine for a second that you were a treasure hunter.
Okay.
You aren't out there doing this for the science papers.
Right. No academic tenure waiting for you.
Exactly. You were doing it for the thrill. And, well, let's be honest, the payoff.
The money.
The money. You spent your whole life scanning the pitch-black bottom of the Baltic Sea. Usually you're looking for the classics.
Like World War I shipwrecks?
Right. Shipwrecks, old timber, which is actually worth a fortune because it's preserved in the cold water. Or maybe, if you're really, really lucky, crates of Tsarist champagne.
Stuff that's been aging in the dark since, the Russian Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what you're looking for. When you look at a sonar screen, you know what a ship looks like.
It looks like a ship.
It has a bow, it has a stern, it casts a very specific shadow.
It's a very specific visual language. I mean, you really have to realize these guys are staring at a screen of static for 12 hours a day.
Just noise.
It's just acoustic noise. And they are looking for straight lines. They're looking for man-made silhouettes in a world that is pretty much entirely defined by chaotic glacial rock.
It's a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. But the haystack is underwater, and it's freezing.
And it's a grind. Hours of bad coffee.
Yeah.
And just sheer boredom. So let's fast forward a bit to June 19th, 2011.
Okay.
You are in the Gulf of Bothnia. That's the northern arm of the Baltic Sea, right smack between Sweden and Finland.
Up in the cold water.
Very cold. You're aboard the research vessel Enceladus, and you are working with the Ocean X team.
Now, looking at the background of these guys.
Peter Lindbergh, Dennis Ausberg, Stefan Hungeborn.
Right. They are professionals, but they are industrial scavengers.
Yeah, they found submarines before. They found liquor.
They are practical men. They aren't out there chasing ghosts.
And that context is so vital for you listening to understand. These aren't academic geologists setting out to map seafloor plate tectonics.
Or study sedimentation rates? No.
They're looking for assets, things they can pull up, salvage, and sell.
They are business people operating in a very dangerous environment.
Right, looking for a payday. But on this specific day, in June 2011, the side-scan sonar screen lights up.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't see a ship.
No.
They don't see a submarine. They see a perfect 60-meter-wide disk.
A circle, basically a near-perfect geometric shape.
A rigid geometric circle. Just resting on the ocean floor at about 85 to 90 meters deep.
Down.
And it doesn't look like a rock. It looks, well, the immediate reaction from everyone who saw that raw data image was that it looked exactly like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars.
Which, ironically, is kind of where the trouble really begins for them.
Absolutely.
Because once you make that comparison to the press, it's hard to walk it back.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're not just dealing with a funny-shaped rock. You're dealing with what the world now calls the Baltic Sea Anomaly.
Yep.
And for the last 15 years, this object has been a massive Rorschach test for the entire planet.
Is it a geological quirk?
Right. Is it a secret Nazi superweapon lost in 1943?
An ancient temple from when the sea was dry land.
Or, and this is the big one, is it a crashed UFO?
And that is the mission we are going to tackle today. We are going to sift through 15 years of incredibly conflicting data.
From that initial discovery all the way to the highly controversial updates that came out between 2024 and 2026.
We're going to look at the sonar physics, the glacial geology, the military reports.
And the rumors. So many rumors.
Our goal is to separate the hydroacoustic epistemology.
Which is just a fancy way of saying how we know what we think we know from bouncing sound waves.
Exactly. Separate that from the media hype. Because when you actually strip away the tabloid headlines and you just look at the raw reports, the story is actually much stranger than just a picture of a spaceship.
It is a total roller coaster of data. And hey, before we dive into the dark water here, I just have to remind you, this story gets really complicated.
Very quickly.
We're going to be doing a lot more deep dives into these kinds of unexplained mysteries where science meets the strange. So if you want to keep up and you don't want to miss the next deep dive, make sure you hit that follow and subscribe button right now.
You definitely don't want to be out of the loop on these.
So let's go back to that first scan. Let's unpack the discovery itself.
Let's look at the environment first.
Okay, set the scene. June 2011. The coordinates are 61 degrees, 22.6 minutes north, 18 degrees, 26.9 minutes east.
That's right in the middle of nowhere.
We are down deep, 85 to 90 meters. For context, that's almost the length of a football field straight down.
It's pitch black.
The water is incredibly murky,
And the Baltic Sea is a really unique environment. It's brackish water.
meaning low salinity.
Right, low salt. It's not quite the open ocean, but it's definitely not a lake either. And it has a very specific sedimentation rate.
Things get buried fast.
Very fast. The bottom is usually just a thick, silty soup.
Yeah.
The visibility is often basically zero.
But this thing wasn't buried. The initial side scan sonar image shows this massive object sticking up about 3 to 4 meters above the seabed.
That's like 10 to 13 feet.
Exactly. And it's a 60-meter diameter disk. That's 200 feet across. That is huge.
It's the size of a jumbo jet.
It is. And what stood out immediately to the Ocean X team wasn't just the circle.
Because in nature, you can get circular formations, you can get volcanic plugs, you can get impact craters.
Right. But this had what the team specifically described as a runway.
The runway.
This is the detail that always gives me goosebumps when I look at the charts. Leading up to this disk, for about 300 meters, that's almost 1,000 feet, there is a flattened path.
A morphological scar on the seabed.
A scar. The seabed is all churned up and flattened, and this path leads directly to the object.
To the Ocean X team, and frankly, to a lot of lay people looking at those raw images, it looked like a crash landing.
It looks like something came in hot, hit the bottom, skidded for 300 meters, and then just came to a dead stop.
That trajectory narrative is very powerful. It implies kinetic displacement.
Meaning it wasn't just formed there.
Right. That this object wasn't formed there by slow geology, but that it arrived there with momentum. It suggests an event, not a process.
And as they looked closer, and we're getting pretty granular here, it wasn't just a smooth blob of rock. The team started noticing details that felt very architectural.
They talked about construction lines.
Yeah. They identified what appeared to be straight edges, distinct boxes, and corridors seemingly drawn into the surface structure.
Now, nature loves chaos. Nature loves fractals.
It doesn't usually do right angles.
Exactly. Nature usually doesn't do perfect 90-degree internal corners or long, straight corridors.
And then there's the meringue.
Ah, the meringue.
Which sounds delicious, but in this context, it's a distinct spherical object resting right on top of the main disk.
Like a turret or a dome.
Yeah, or, a large erratic rock just dropped on top.
But visually, it adds to the complexity of the whole thing. It breaks the silhouette. It implies a multi-part structure.
And then the holes. This thing has holes.
Apertures.
Apertures. There's a small one, about 25 to 30 centimeters.
Okay.
But then there's a massive one, a 2-meter wide opening. That's 6.5 feet. You could literally stand inside it.
And it's not just a ragged, natural-looking hole.
No. The reports describe it as having a square collar or a frame around it.
That square frame is the detail that makes geologists really pause.
Why is that?
Because dissolution water slowly eating away at rock that can make holes. We see that in limestone all the time.
Right, underwater caves.
Exactly. But dissolution rarely makes square frames. That implies intentionality, or at the very least, a highly rigid crystalline structure that we haven't identified yet.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The divers and the remote operated vehicles, the ROVs, observed something happening at that hole.
The breathing.
They said it was breathing. They actually observed sediment pulsing in and out of this 2-meter cavity.
Like a pump.
Or a lung.
Or a hydraulic pressure release. We'll get to the potential natural explanations for that later, but visually, seeing a static rock formation puffing dust out of a square hole, it's weird. It creates a very specific impression of mechanical activity. It suggests there is an internal volume that is actively interacting with the external pressure.
It makes it feel alive. Or powered somehow.
And the surface itself.
Yeah, the surface had these cracks filled with this black, soot-like material. It looked burned.
Yeah.
Like it had been through an intense fire.
Which is completely counterintuitive underwater. You don't usually see scorch marks at 90 meters depth.
Exactly. But wait, there's actually more. Because usually when you hear about this story online or on TV, you hear about the disc.
The Millennium Falcon.
Right. But there is a second character in this play that often just gets completely cut from the script.
The second anomaly.
200 meters away.
Which is a stone's throw in oceanographic terms. It's right next door.
There is a second structure. And this one isn't a disc, it's a wall.
A rectangular stone wall. The sonar scans from later on, around 2014, resolved this fairly clearly.
Yeah, it's roughly 10.5 meters by 18 meters. It's made of these big oblong rocks, and they are arranged in a strict rectangle.
So now you have a perfect disc with a skid mark.
And parallel to it, just 200 meters away, you have a perfect rectangular wall.
That changes the statistical probability entirely. Finding one weird rock is an anomaly. Finding two geometric structures with completely different shapes but distinct architectural vibes right next to each other.
That makes the argument for random nature much harder to sustain.
It suggests a complex site, not just a single isolated object. It implies a precinct.
Okay, so we have the stage set, we have the objects, they look artificial, they look like a crash site in a bunker maybe,
Right.
but then the Ocean X team actually goes down there.
They dive in.
They take the ants list right over the coordinates, and that is when things go from weird geology to high strangeness.
This is where we enter the woo factor.
The woo factor, I love that term, because it's not just about what they saw down there, it's about what happened to their gear.
Stefan Hogeborn, the lead diver, is a very experienced guy. He's spent his whole life underwater. He's not prone to ghost stories.
Right, he's the guy you want when things go wrong.
But he reported a very specific, repeatable phenomenon, an electromagnetic dead zone.
A dead zone.
Yeah.
So they drive the boat over the anomaly.
Yeah.
And what exactly happens?
Everything dies. Satellite phones lose signal entirely. The lights on the underwater cameras just go out.
The ROVs too.
The ROV telemetry, the remote control link, completely drops. Even the basic navigation systems on the boat itself begin to fail.
So it's like hitting an invisible wall.
And it was completely localized. This is the key to the whole claim. They found that if they drifted or motored the Oncelis about 200 meters away from the center of the object,
Click.
everything comes back on. Sat phones have full bars, cameras work, the GPS realigns,
And they drive back over it.
dead again. Consistent failure within a strict 200-meter radius.
That is just spooky. That feels like a sci-fi movie script.
It suggests a powerful, chaotic, local magnetic field. Now, nature can do this. Magnetite is a mineral. It's magnetic iron ore.
Sure.
If you have a massive deposit of magnetite, it can easily spin a compass. But to shut down a satellite phone?
That operates on radio frequencies.
Exactly. RF. That's not just magnetism. That's active interference. That's jamming.
And speaking of radio frequencies, they picked up a signal, didn't they?
They did. They detected a distinct radio signal at 40 megahertz emanating from the immediate vicinity of the site.
40 megahertz. What even uses that?
A lot of things, actually. Older military hardware, baby monitors, certain types of oceanographic buoys. But here's the kicker. The team said their equipment was only capable of listening for a range of about 2 or 3 kilometers. It was short-range gear.
And where's the nearest land?
The nearest lighthouse or landmass is over 37 kilometers away.
So there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
Just open, cold water. And yet there's a radio station broadcasting from the anomaly.
That is the claim. Now, there are scientific counterpoints to this. We call it atmospheric ducting.
What's that?
Sometimes, specific weather conditions can trap radio waves and bounce them over the horizon. So they might have been picking up a signal from a ship way, way off in the distance or a coastal station, and the atmosphere just happened to dump the signal right there on their boat. Or it could be bad wiring on their own boat, creating a feedback loop.
Sure. Bad wiring. But combined with the phones dying and the cameras turning off, it's highly suspicious. And then there's the temperature thing.
The thermal anomaly.
It's the Baltic Sea. It's cold.
It's usually a very stable plus 4 degrees Celsius at that depth.
Yeah.
Water is actually densest at 4 degrees, so it settles down there at the bottom. It's a very predictable thermodynamic layer. But near the disk, the divers and the sensors reported the temperature dropping to -1 or even 0 degrees Celsius.
That's literally freezing.
In fresh water, that's solid ice. In brackish water, it's slush. It is incredibly difficult to explain a localized pocket of freezing water just sitting on the bottom of the sea unless something is actively cooling it.
Actively cooling it, like a machine.
Or, as we'll discuss later, there's a natural spring involved. But to the divers, it felt completely unnatural. It felt like swimming into a freezer.
It felt like a refrigerator. So you have a dead zone. You have a phantom radio signal. You have freezing water. And then you have the guests.
The guests.
The Ocean X team claims they weren't alone out there.
This is the part of the story that really moves into geopolitical thriller territory. In 2012, they reported being actively harassed. They claim that when they were on site, NATO warships appeared in the vicinity.
And not just standard NATO ships, they talk about the Black Ship.
A mysterious, completely unmarked Swedish military vessel. They described it as hovering silently near them.
No radio contact.
None, just watching.
That is terrifying. You're in the middle of the ocean, you found something completely weird, your lights are flickering on and off, and there's a black ship just sitting there watching you in the fog. It's like something straight out of the X-Files.
And according to Dennis Salzberg, it didn't end there on the water. He claims that after the dive, they were forced to hand over data.
Hard drives.
Hard drives, physical rock samples. He says they were interviewed by intelligence officers.
Which heavily implies that whatever is down there, the military already knows about it. Or they are very, very worried about it.
Or, to play devil's advocate for a moment,
Please do.
if you have a civilian vessel parking itself in a strategic shipping lane and broadcasting on open channels that they've found a mystery object, the Navy is absolutely going to come check it out.
Just to make sure they aren't messing with submarine cables.
Exactly. Or acoustic sensors. The Baltic is a very sensitive area militarily, especially between NATO and Russia.
True. But the confiscation of data feels like a cover-up. It just does. So that's the mystery. That's the woo. It sounds overwhelming. It sounds like definitive proof of something high-tech.
Right.
We have to put on our skepticism hats here because we promised you, the listener, we would separate the epistemology from the hype. We need to be completely fair.
We did. It's responsible reporting.
So let's open up the skeptic's toolkit.
Yeah.
Because there's a very strong argument that this is all just a massive misunderstanding of the technology.
It starts with the sonar itself.
The picture of the Millennium Falcon.
Right. You have to understand what side-scan sonar actually is. It is not a camera. It does not take a photograph.
What does it do?
It drags a transducer, a noisemaker, through the water behind the boat. It sends out a fan of sound. That sound hits the bottom and bounces back.
So it's echolocation, like a bat or a dolphin.
Exactly. And the image it creates on the screen is a map of acoustic shadows. If there's a rock, the sound hits it, and behind that rock, there's total silence.
And the computer paints that silence as a shadow.
Precisely. And this is where Hanumant Singh comes into the story. He's a researcher at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution.
Top tier.
Absolute expert. He looked at the raw Ocean X data, and he was, well, unimpressed.
He didn't hold back at all.
No. He called the equipment cheap. He said it was improperly wired. He said it was completely uncalibrated.
Ouch.
When a sonar isn't calibrated, it massively distorts the image. It can take a jagged, completely natural ridge and stretch it out.
It can make it look smooth.
It can make it look symmetrical. Singh's analysis was that the perfect disk might just be a natural pile of rocks that the glitchy sonar literally drew as a disk.
So the Millennium Falcon might just be a total glitch.
A digital artifact, a pixelated guess by a cheap, struggling computer.
And speaking of computers making guesses, we have to talk about the 2024 updates. Because people started using AI on these old images.
This is a huge problem in this field right now. Recently, we've seen people taking those old, grainy 2011 sonar scans and running them through generative upscaling AI.
You know, enhance.
Enhance! Right. And the AI does exactly what it's trained to do. It looks at noise and tries to find a recognizable pattern. It sees a blurry blob and thinks, oh, that looks like a spaceship.
So it adds vents.
It adds vents, it adds bolts, it adds panel lines that were never there.
It hallucinates.
It completely hallucinates structure from noise. So these new, crisp, beautiful images circulating on the internet, they are not data.
They are fan art.
They are fan art created by an algorithm. We have to be very careful not to confuse those with the raw data from 2011.
That is such a crucial distinction. Okay, so the picture might be incredibly dodgy, but what about the physical rocks? They actually brought rocks up from the site, didn't they?
They did. They gave samples to Stockholm University, specifically to a geologist named Volker Bruchert.
And what did Volker find? Alien alloys. Unobtainium?
He found granite, he found gneiss, he found sandstone.
Standard kitchen countertop stuff.
It is the standard geological phone book of the Baltic Sea. The Baltic is a massive glacial basin. The ice sheets ground up the bedrock, which is mostly granite and gneiss, and just dumped it everywhere.
But wait, there's a big controversy about basalt.
There was. They found a piece of basalt among the samples. Now, basalt is volcanic rock. It's cooled lava. And there are 0 volcanoes in the Gulf of Bothnia.
So the internet went wild. Volcanic rock. Is it an engine part? Is it heat shielding from a re-entry vehicle?
It's a logical leap for a layman. If there are no volcanoes, how did lava rock get there?
Glaciers.
Ice sheets are massive conveyor belts. They move over volcanic regions hundreds of miles away, pick up rocks, carry them inside the ice, and then 10,000 years later, the ice melts and drops the rock. We call it a glacial erratic.
So it's a hitchhiker.
It's a very common geological hitchhiker. Finding basalt in the Baltic is like finding a seashell in a backyard in Iowa. It just means ice brought it there a long time ago.
And the burned look. The black soot that filled the cracks.
Underwater rust, it's called ferromanganese nodules, lemonite, and goethite.
So it's a chemical reaction.
Yes. In that part of the ocean, you have a lot of dissolved iron and manganese in the water. Over thousands of years, it precipitates out and coats rocks in this black, crusty shell. It looks exactly like soot or scorch marks.
So if you're a treasure hunter wanting to find a UFO, you see a burned ship. But if you're a geologist, you see a rusty rock dropped by a glacier.
Exactly. And the holes could just be gas venting from the seabed or natural dissolution.
Okay, so it's a rock theory. And it's strong. It really is. But it doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain the strict right angles. It doesn't explain the parallel walls. And it certainly doesn't explain why the satellite phones died.
No. Geology completely struggles with the electromagnetic interference. Rocks don't usually turn off your cameras.
So let's look at the middle ground. The theories that are human, but secret. We have to talk about the Nazis.
The World War II anti-submarine trap hypothesis. This is largely championed by Anders Attellis, a former Swedish naval officer.
This theory makes a terrifying amount of sense to me.
It does. You have to look at the historical context. During World War II, Germany was desperate for steel. They needed iron ore to build tanks and U-boats. Where did they get it? Sweden was neutral, but they were definitely selling ore.
And that ore had to be shipped across the Baltic Sea.
The British and the Soviets knew this perfectly well, so they filled the Baltic with submarines to sink those German cargo ships.
So the Germans needed a way to stop the subs.
Attellis suggests that the anomaly is actually a massive concrete anchor for a steel wire mesh net, or, specifically, a baffle.
Describe how a baffle works.
Imagine a massive, double-skinned concrete disc, which explains the 90-degree internal corridors and the meringue dome shape. Inside that concrete, you embed a huge mesh of steel wire.
What does the wire do?
It acts as a giant Faraday cage. It creates magnetic interference. It baffles sonar. If an Allied submarine tries to navigate near it using early 1940s radar or sonar, the signal gets completely scrambled.
The sub goes blind.
The sub gets blind, and maybe it crashes.
So it's a trap, a silent electronic trap sitting in the dark.
It fits the data perfectly. Why is there a dead zone? Because it's a giant magnet designed to jam electronics. Why are there right angles? Because it's poured concrete formwork.
Why is there a skid mark?
Because they towed this massive thing out there on barges and sank it, and it skidded when it hit the bottom.
And the black soot?
Decaying steel mesh creates rust. Concrete also sweats certain chemicals over decades underwater.
Ticks every single box.
It does, except one.
Which is?
The paperwork.
Oh.
The Germans were meticulous bureaucrats. Even when they were actively losing the war, they filed paperwork. Building a 60-meter concrete disc, towing it to the middle of the sea, and sinking it. That is a massive engineering project.
It would require huge barges, cranes, hundreds of men.
And there's no record.
Not a scrap.
No blueprints, no operational orders, no shipping manifests. And usually, concrete left underwater for 80 years gets absolutely covered in barnacles and algae. This thing is surprisingly clean.
So it's the perfect theory, with absolutely zero historical proof.
Exactly. It's an elegant solution that entirely lacks the receipt.
All right, let's go back further, way further. If it's not Nazis, and it's not aliens, could it be cavemen?
The Paleolithic hypothesis. This connects to the Doggerland concept.
We've talked about Doggerland before on the show, the Atlantis of the North.
Right. 12 to 14,000 years ago, the last ice age was ending. Sea levels were much, much lower, about 120 meters lower.
So the site of the anomaly, it wasn't underwater at all.
It was dry land, or maybe the shore of a massive freshwater lake formed by the melting glaciers. It was a tundra landscape.
So people could have literally just walked there.
People did live there. We know this for a fact. There are major archaeological projects right now, like Subnautica, scanning the Baltic, specifically looking for Stone Age settlements that got swallowed by the rising sea.
They find stuff.
They find ancient fish traps, they find stone tools, preserved tree stumps.
So could the anomaly be a building?
It's entirely possible. Think about the second anomaly. The rectangular stone wall we mentioned earlier. That looks a whole lot like a tarrant.
A tarrant.
It's an ancient Baltic burial enclosure, basically a rectangular wall of stones left open to the sky. If you found that exact structure on land in Estonia today, you'd call it a grave.
And the main disc, what would that be?
Maybe a sunken Stonehenge? A massive ceremonial platform? Or a fortress?
That would explain the geometry. It would explain the specific location. But does it explain the electronics failing?
No. Stone circles don't jam iPhones. Unless you believe in some very mystical ley line energy, the Paleolithic theory solves the physical shape but completely fails the physics test.
So we are stuck. The rocks explain the shape, but not the weirdness. The Nazis explain the weirdness, but have no paperwork. The cavemen explain the walls, but not the radio signals.
It is a complete standoff.
Which brings us to the present day. Because this story didn't just end in 2012. It went quiet for a long time, and then it exploded again.
The 2024 to 2026 resurgence.
Dennis Osberg, one of the original founders of Ocean X, finally came out of the shadows.
Yeah.
He went on the American Alchemy podcast with Jesse Michaels in late 2025.
He did.
And he didn't just rehash the old 2011 stories. He dropped entirely new data.
And the whole tone had changed. He used a very specific loaded phrase, ontological shock.
Ontological shock, that's a heavy term. It basically means encountering something that completely shatters your understanding of reality.
It's usually used heavily in modern UFO and UAP circles.
And Osberg went right there. He admitted that long before he ever found the anomaly, he had personally seen a massive UFO hovering over a Swedish plutonium facility.
He essentially framed himself as a longtime believer. He said this anomaly is part of that exact same phenomenon.
But let's look at the actual data he brought to the table. He talked about sub-bottom profiling.
This is a crucial update. Remember, side-scan sonar just sees the surface of the mud. Sub-bottom profiling is more like an X-ray.
Okay.
It uses very low-frequency sound to penetrate the mud and look at the geological layers underneath.
And what did the X-ray show?
According to Osberg, and we really have to emphasize, this data hasn't been independently peer-reviewed yet. The scan allegedly shows the disk is physically detached from the seabed.
Whoa. Explain why that matters so much.
If it's a natural rock formation like a volcanic plug or an upthrust ridge, it should have roots. It should be deeply connected to the bedrock below. It should merge seamlessly into the Earth's crust.
But if it's detached...
It means it's just sitting on top of the mud, like a plate resting on a table.
Which heavily implies it was placed there, or it landed there.
Correct. Now, a glacial erratic, a rock dropped by ice, would also be detached, but a 60-meter-wide perfect disk dropped by ice without shattering into pieces.
That seems impossible.
Statistically, it's incredibly unlikely. If the ice dropped a rock that big, it would be a jagged, chaotic boulder, not a symmetrical disk.
He also mentioned biological material.
He claimed they retrieved organic matter and burned debris from the site that was deeply anomalous.
Name.
He hinted that it wasn't just standard rocks and rust, but complex organic compounds that simply shouldn't be there.
And he said, quote, "So overwhelming, it's completely insane." He basically implied he knows exactly what it is now, and he understands why humanity isn't supposed to know.
Which is a classic mystery box tactic. It keeps the funding coming in, it keeps the public interest high, but it also aligns perfectly with the Alpha Centauri myths.
We have to touch on that. The internet lore.
There is a deep, deep rabbit hole of internet mythology that claims this object is the Alpha Centauri Victor Class A ship, that it's a specific alien vessel that crashed thousands of years ago.
Is there any actual source for that other than Reddit forums?
None. It's pure folklore. But Osberg's new claims about biological material and the object being detached are actively feeding that fire. He is leaning into the alien narrative more than ever before.
So we have a massive resurgence. We have new claims of hard data, but we haven't actually seen the white paper yet.
We are waiting for the peer review. Until we see the independent lab reports, it's just a really cool story.
So where does that leave us? We've looked at the sonar data. We've looked at the theories. What is the final synthesis here?
It's a standoff between two fundamentally different worldviews.
Team nature versus team mystery.
Team nature has the strongest evidence for the physical materials. The rocks are granite. They are nice. The soot is manganese.
And the shape?
The shape is likely pareidolia, seeing faces in clouds, exaggerated by bad, cheap sonar.
They say it's a glacial deposit that just happens to look really cool.
Exactly.
And team mystery.
They hang their hat entirely on the anomalies that nature just can't explain. The 200-meter dead zone, the freezing water, the breathing hole, and now the claim that the object is physically detached from the Earth.
And the military interest. You don't send a black ship to watch a rusty rock.
Unless you're worried the rusty rock is actually a Russian sub hiding. But yes, the military silence speaks volumes. If it was just a rock, why all the secrecy and confiscation?
My verdict. It's a stark reminder of how little we actually know about the benthic zones, the deep ocean. We think we've mapped the entire world, but down there, it's basically an alien planet.
It completely challenges our technological hubris. We always assume our sensors see the absolute truth. But down in the cold and the dark, our sensors glitch, our reality bends.
So I really have to ask you, listening right now, is it a rock? Is it a Nazi trap? Or is it a craft?
And if it is a craft, is it still active?
That's the question that keeps me up at night. The radio signal suggests maybe it is.
Indeed.
Look, this story isn't over. Osberg is promising more data soon. The scientists are pushing back hard. We are going to keep tracking this as it develops. So, final reminder. If you want to be there when we crack this case or when we dive into the next big mystery, you need to follow and subscribe right now. Don't miss the next deep dive.
There's always more to learn in the dark.
I'm going to leave you with one image tonight. Imagine that Swedish black ship, hovering silently on the black water, miles from shore. No lights, no radio, just watching that spot where the Millennium Falcon lies in the mud. What do they know that they aren't telling us?